All right, welcome back to Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We are grateful, appreciative, and fortunate to have our NFL insider, former Super Bowl winning head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, Brian Billick. Coach, hope you're doing well. And look, we got to get right to it here. I know you watched the Sunday night game. I don't know if you stayed up for the whole thing. Here in Cincinnati, people, all of us collectively, me included, are just losing our minds over the play calling, first and goal from the 2 in the third quarter. Now, I have to ask you, and I'm not going to sit here and ask you to second guess or first guess, maybe as you were watching, but walk me through when the head coach is a play caller, and there are other people that can hear what the call is going to be. On a night where you're running the ball really well for the first time all year long, and you decide you're going to run a double reverse with the wide receiver throwing a pass on second down and goal from a 2, is there ever a time where somebody, sort of jumps on the headset and says, Coach, and I'm being serious when I ask you this question, is there ever a time where somebody who's not the head coach would jump in and say, is this really what we want to do here? Or can the quarterback ever kind of say, is this really what we're doing here?
Yeah, kind of like a good catcher with a pitcher, just, wave him, or a pitcher can wave off the catcher. I guess there should be. I can't imagine that circumstance. I mean, for a head coach that would, hey, guys, anytime it really sounds like I'm going to do something stupid, you just chime in and you let me know. I mean, this is the type of thing, I'm sure, when you have that kind of play in, and we talk about it all the time. It's always viewed through the prism of whether it works or doesn't work. If it works, you're a genius. If it doesn't, you're the village idiot. That type of play there, the fact that it didn't work, it's really easy to look at and go, I don't know that you should have thought of that in the first place. But understand, this play was after looking at film, was discussed among the coaches, decided what they want to do. This is one of the options you were going to have there. It's on the play sheet all week long. You've practiced it at least a couple times in the course of practice. So it's been there. And if there was ever a time for someone to say, boy, do we really want to think about this play in that situation? It would be then, not on game day. So, that's a tough one there, to run that deep. You don't see that often. And there are a lot of things that can go wrong with that. And, again, if I got Joe Burrow, who do I want throwing the ball? The wide receiver or Joe Burrow? I think I'd stick with Joe Burrow.
Well, and Brian, I think you can move forward 2 more plays in the sequence where I had no problem at all, and I said this, I didn't like the decision made by Harbaugh the week before. I had no problem with Zach Taylor going forward on 4th down. But here you have an offense that, as I just mentioned, for the first time all year long, they're running it. Mixon is averaging almost 6 yards a carry. P. Ryan's averaging 6 yards a carry. They only run the ball with those 2 guys a total of 19 times in the game, and they throw it 35. But that's for a different discussion at a later time. But on 4th and goal from the 2, they decide to run a shovel pass to a guy who has not touched the ball on offense the entire season in Stanley Morgan. You've got Mixon. You've got Chase. You've got Tyler Boyd. You've got Hayden Hurst, who all of a sudden is really starting to evolve in this offense. Do players start to question a coach when the second down play is called and then the 4th down play in this case is called? Do players start looking around based on your experience and say, what the hell's going on around here?
Yeah, particularly if it doesn't work. Players are the first to jump on the bench and say, hey, I confess he did it. They're always going to be looking for an excuse to why things didn't turn out well. A shuffle pass down there is not that's a little bit different than reverse because of the upfield charge and the way he probably had some options as he came out to either shuffle it or go to the outside. It's not a bad call. It's a play that you see a lot. So in all these situations, you can always second guess what it is you're doing, and is there better ways? Is there more straightforward? If as well as they were running the ball, and they'd have just on first down, pound, second down, third down, and not gotten it, would be out going, what are you thinking running the ball 3 straight times? Why can't you? So there's always, it's interesting. Goal line calls are interesting because defensively, it's binary. You're either all out to stop the rush, or you're more passive and you're expecting a pass. It's one or the other, because you can't. And if you're in there to stop the rush and you throw a pass, you look silly because 3 guys are open. And if you're a little backed off, thinking, okay, we think they're going to throw here, and you run the ball, then you run it right down your throat. But on the goal line, because of where it is, it's all or nothing. And so it's a 50-50 proposition. If you happen to be running it when they're passive, you're going to score. If you happen to be running it when they're shoving everybody up into the gap, it's going to be tougher. So, but all in all, I think the Bengals played a really good game on the road. I mean, they like you said, they ran the ball very well. They kept the Ravens from dominating the time of possession, which the Ravens are obviously known to do with that offense. They actually had the ball more than to the Ravens. And what a huge advantage for the Ravens. Under the radar to a degree, everybody knows he's the best kicker in the NFL. But to know in your back pocket, if I need it, I don't have to go to length of field to score a game if all I need is a field goal. If I can just get to the 40 or 45, I can win this game. What a huge, huge asset Tucker is for the Ravens.
I want to ask you about a couple of teams. Are you buying or selling? Let's start with the Giants. They go to London and they beat Green Bay 27-22. They outscore the Packers 17-2 in the second half. Are you buying the Giants?
I think you have to, because we talked about the last couple of weeks, the way they're running the ball. They ran the ball very, very well, more than 125 yards and they're stuck with it with 30 carries. Green Bay, compared to last week, didn't run the ball as well. And Aaron Rodgers was, typical and throwing it around and with 2 touchdowns. But Daniel Jones, 21-27. I mean, he can afford to be very prudent about what he does and very judicious when you're running the ball the way they are, and they're playing really, really good defense. So, yeah, I don't think there's any question that the Giants, are they going to be there at the end of the day? We'll see. But right now, I mean, we're a quarter way of the season. It's a pretty good indicator. We're past the early, offenses struggle a little bit early, and you're coming out of training camp, and how good are you really? I think we're past that point. I think the Giants certainly deserve to be looked at as real.
And that'll be maybe the most interesting game of the weekend. Baltimore goes to New York to play the Giants this coming Sunday. In Dallas, you and I know Dallas. Dak Prescott starts the opener. They look terrible on offense. He's still Dak Prescott. He breaks his thumb. In comes Cooper Rush. They've ripped off a 4-game win streak. Defense is unbelievable. I'm not going to ask you if there's a quarterback controversy, but is there a quarterback controversy brewing in Dallas?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
Right.
When you're winning and you're playing as well as they are behind this quarterback. And now, again, he only threw the ball 16 times. They had 160 yards rushing. And so I don't think any of us is ready to stand and say, okay, let's think about this guy as the Hall of Famer. This is also, remember how Tony Romo kind of started out, and all of a sudden got going and came in and took advantage of his opportunity. No, I don't think there's going to be a quarterback controversy yet, but the longer this goes, and if they continue to win, you always kind of go, well, do we really want to jinx this? Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Rush is right now. But this young man's building a little bit of a resume. So fortunately, they don't have to deal with it right now, and it'll probably take care of itself. But if they continue their winning ways, yeah, particularly it being the Dallas Cowboys and all that goes on with it being the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to say, no, we don't have a quarterback controversy here. Well, you don't have a say in it because the fans and we're going to make one of it.
Last thing I want to ask you about is the decision by Brandon Staley with the Chargers on Sunday. They have the ball at their own 46-yard line. Cleveland is out of timeouts. The Chargers lead the game with 1 minute and 14 seconds left, and he decides to go for it on 4th down, doesn't get it. Cleveland gets the ball back. they miss the field goal and the Chargers hang on and win the game. When you were watching that, you thought what?
Well, the chance to goes a little bit back to the Harbaugh decision last week we talked about, that you can close this thing out if you want to be aggressive enough. It's something that you do on a regular basis. You obviously have a game plan for it. You have confidence in the style that you're playing. That's all part of it, particularly when you're on the road. Again, these are conversations and these are decisions that you make during the course of the week with the staff, whether, end of the game, are we going to go for 2? How aggressive are we going to be on 4th down? Not the least of which is you're on the road. And those decisions might be different if you're at home than if you're on the road. But the ability to say, okay, we're going to be a little more aggressive here. Cleveland, obviously, early on looked really, really good. And was moving the ball, and then the defense stiffened up a little bit, and the Chargers came back a little bit. But that may have been in part of his mind too, going, look, if I can close this thing out, being a little more aggressive, that's what I'm going to do. And it didn't turn out. It still turned out for them, but the fact that they again, you talk about a team that had the right formula to go on the road and rush for better than 230 yards. They early on it looked like all Cleveland when I was watching that game. And then all of a sudden, the Chargers just kept coming and ran the ball. I mean, it's not like Cleveland didn't run. They had over 200 yards. So both these teams' ability to run was impressive.
Yeah, Austin Eckler only carried 16 times for 173 yards in that game. Well, Brian, you being the big leaguer that you are, we're going to let you go so you can move on from off the bench from tiny little Hamilton, Ohio, to go join your good friend and mine, Colin Cowherd. So we wish you the very best on that show.
Well, he's nicer to me than you are. He doesn't second guess me the way you used to.
All right, my man. Have a great day. Thanks for your time. Tell Kim and everybody we said hello, and we'll talk to you next week.
We'll do it.
All right, Brian Billick, kind enough to join us and get his thoughts. I just love hearing the inside stuff about, things you decide ahead of time when you're game planning for a team. And I'll have to ask Brian about it some other time about, you always hear about halftime adjustments. But I'm wondering about, in-game adjustments. And I still can't figure the whole Browns thing, just like I can't figure the Bengals thing. But the Browns thing, I can't understand how Nick Chubb is carrying the ball 17 times a game. I just don't get it. They had so many moments in that game where they had Kareem Hunt, who's a nice player. I mean, Kareem Hunt's a really nice player. And he might be the best number 2 back in the NFL. In fact, he is the best number 2 back in the NFL. But Chubb is the second best overall running back in the NFL right now, behind only Saquon Barkley. And he's getting the ball 17 times? We'll ask Brian about it some other time. All right, we got lots going on today. Tracy Jones coming up later on in the program. So stick around. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers.